Namaste and greetings. I, Sakshi, research intern at IMPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute, Prabhav Evam Niti Anusandhan Sansthan, Nai Delhi, extend my warmest welcome to you all, IMPRI Web Policy Learning. Today, we are gathered for week 5 of our 2-month immersive training course on understanding the nuances of climate change in the Indian subcontinent, Cohort 2.0. I welcome you all to this transformative journey exploring sustainable, resilient, and innovative responses to our current climate challenges. The chair for the program is Ms. Bhargavi S. Rao ji, independent researcher and educator, environmental activist, Bengaluru, visiting senior fellow, IMPRI. The experts for today's session are Ms. Bhargavi S. Rao ji, Professor Anil K. Gupta ji. The conveners for this course are Mr. Tikendra Singh Panwar ji, Dr. Simi Mehta ji, Dr. Arjun Kumar ji. Proceeding further, we thank everyone for joining us today and appreciate your dedication in investing your time, energy, and commitment to gaining a profound understanding of climate change dynamics and development responses. We have also shared course outline and reading resources in your email for your kind perusal. Before we start today's session, I would like to state the housekeeping announcements. Please join the meeting on time. There will be a Q&A session after each presentation. Share your questions on the Q&A box. The questions must not be posted as an anonymous attendee. Ensure that your questions are precise. Refrain from making general comments in the question to save time. So, for our first session, I am delighted to invite Ms. Bhargava S. Rao ji for her address on social and environmental justice in India's climate policy. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Sakshi. So I thank everybody again at IMPRI for giving me this wonderful opportunity of not just being a chair for this entire course, but also giving me a session to address the social and environmental justice in India's climate policy. And today, which will be followed by the disaster resilience and climate change and adaptation, which is another very important issue when we are talking about climate change. India is witnessing a massive decline in all environmental quality indicators such as air, water, forests, and there are severe conflicts that exist on a range of issues involving natural resources, including land. And there have been many cases in court which have given orders which have influenced the entire drafting of the climate policy as well. Dr. Soumya Dutta has extensively explained to us about the NAPCC, so I will not go into it, but just to recall, the NAPCC was formed in 2008, and soon after that the states were asked to draft their own state action plans, right? So in that context, I will share my screen and walk you through a presentation. Yeah, so if we have to understand the social and environmental justice in India's climate policies, over the last few years, we've been witnessing extremes of weather in all the big cities. And as I speak, it's raining in some parts of Bangalore, and we've been through a lot. And there has been a lot of dialogue on how cities have grown beyond imagination and how things need to be addressed on a serious manner, right? So going back to the Paris Climate Accord itself and India's commitment. So after signing the Paris Climate Accord, Article 253 of the Indian Constitution gives the power to make laws, the parliament to make power to make the laws which are applicable to the country. And it was on that basis that the NAPCC was formed, as I said, and this was like the official recognition that of climate change and how appropriate action needs to be taken. So we also learned from a couple of earlier lectures that NAPCC has 8 missions, and these missions are the National Solar Mission, the Mission on Sustainable Habitat, the Water Mission, then the Mission on Sustaining the Himalayan Ecosystem, then also the National Mission on Strategic Knowledge for Climate Change, the National Mission for a Green India, and the National Mission for Sustainable Agriculture. So more recently, it was in 2022 that under the chairmanship of the Prime Minister, the nationally determined contributions were, looked at, and what was called the Panchamrit was what our Prime Minister presented at the international conference, and to help India reach its goal of net zero at 2070. And this is what it looks like. So if we look at the goals itself, these are again things that we have gone through. So this was just to kind of recall everything that we have studied. While there were some goals that were quantified, a whole lot of goals were not quantified. And there were a few challenges, but at the same time, the country is facing extremes of climate. And everything that has been drafted until now under the NAPCC and the state action plans and all our goals, we see that, like I said, it is too broad. Much of it lacks specificities, and there is also there is a lack of coordination, and it looks like it has been rushed through exercise of compiling things from everywhere. And also there has not been a proper consultation with the state and state governments and the panchayats in drafting this as well. And like I said, some missions have been quantified, whereas others are completely adaptive. But what is important is the renewable energy, and particularly the solar missions have been given a lot of attention, and they are considered successful as well. And we as a country are very proud of all the big achievements that this entire solar mission has achieved. Unfolding utility scale solar parks across the country is something that we are very proud of. Then NAPCC also mentions that legislations may be required at the central and state level to arrive at appropriate delegation of responsibility, but no new legislation has followed, right? Then also the entire framework, it continues to operate in a very fragmented way across the country. And there is also a lack of a comprehensive climate change legislation itself, or even a proper policy document that guides everybody, every state in the country to be in tune with the Paris Agreement and the UNFCCC. So while we have made all those promises and all those goals in the name of the solar mission, there's been a huge land grab everywhere, because most of the renewable energy projects, both wind and solar, are land intensive. And since there is no proper guidance on what kind of land can be taken, state governments have come out with their own policies to take land. And it is the renewable energy policies that are driving the land policies of the state. So if you see what is happening, huge tracts of land for utility scale solar parks are being taken, and these are prime agricultural lands, or sometimes even land close to forest lands, and some of it is grant land. And at the end of the day, somebody is paying the price for it. And the patterns of land grab are also very interesting, and I will come to it shortly. So just to explain the images on this slide, the one on the extreme left of your screen is the Pavagada. The central one is very close to the Kaveri Wildlife Sanctuary. On the right is the windmill, again in central Karnataka, and on top is a picture of the report. Again, the picture that you see in the background is that of a solar park in Assam, where the land of the grant land of a local community was taken away. So what does this entail? So when land is taken away, people are dispossessed of their lives and livelihoods, and that pushes them to the margins, and that makes them more vulnerable. So in order to solve a climate crisis, we seem to be creating a whole range of problems and literally pushing people under the bus of climate change. So coming to the patterns of land grab itself, while the country spent a lot of time, civil society and social movements and trade unions and a whole lot of people came together over the last 40-50 years to fix the Land Acquisition Act. We had the 1894 Land Acquisition Act, which was very draconian, and a lot of fair practices were brought in so that people get a fair compensation. Everything on their land is valued, like mango trees, coconut trees, their hens, goats, sheep, cattle, everything was valued, and they would be given a fair compensation. And this law eventually, which was passed in 2013, and then again some amendments were proposed in 2015. It is largely referred to as the LAR Act of 2013. So this act, while so much effort went to fix that, today that law is dodged when it comes to taking land. Every state has found its own way of taking land. So like I said, the new industrial policy in every state, and also the renewable energy policies, are determining what kind of land reforms should take place. And also there has been dilution of environmental laws, right? So taking land is becoming easier, and this is dispossessing people of their lives and livelihoods. On top is the picture of a screenshot of this organization called the Land Conflict Watch, who monitor all the land conflicts. And these are all the dots that you see there are all energy related projects. So you can just see the kind of conflicts this entire mission is pushing towards. And what does this happen? What does this mean at the local level? So what happens is, when land is taken away, I said I would explain the different kinds of grabbing of the land, right? So in Pavagada, for example, dodging the Land Acquisition Act, the method in which land has been taken is a lease method, where every farmer who's parting with his land will get just about 21,000 rupees per acre per year. And most of the farmers who've parted with their land are the small and marginal farmers. Small and marginal farmers are all those people who are having less than or about 3 to 5 acres of land. And most of the people will not even have an entire acre. They're all the time talking in guntas in Karnataka. It has similar terminology across the states. It's less than an acre in many cases. And in the central picture, which I mentioned about the Kaveri Wildlife Sanctuary area, the land is taken away, directly purchasing it from the owners by the developer. So what the developer does is he sends his brokers into the village, and these brokers hang out near alcohol shops where men are drinking and get into a conversation, and they are luring them with all kinds of rates to part with their land. The women of the household will not even know that the land has been taken away. And the Mikir Bamani case is a case where grant land, which the government had given to the poorest of the poor people at some point of time in history, that land was literally violently snatched away from the local people. So what happens when land is taken away is, even if the land size is very small, our local communities are extremely knowledgeable in managing their life within that small piece of land. They graze their animals there, they, one spell of rain, they grow something there, they collect their greens there. If there are trees, they harvest whatever fruits from that tree. The land also acts as an asset to take loans and for various other things. But once the land is gone, the men migrate out, all the able-bodied men migrate out, and the households are left with women. And women land up taking care of senior citizens, running the households, bringing water, bringing firewood. And women are not recognized as farmers, which is another big issue across the country. And so they have very little access to whatever credits and loans, even if they have other land. And then women also don't have the necessary skill development at the rural level to do it, to get into the renewable energy sector. So they are not the preferred option for jobs. And safety and security is another big concern, because the land is all fragmented and the social fabric of the village life is completely gone. So what does this result in? So once the men have left the household, girl children are obviously pulled out of school and they're put into, all helping their mothers in all the daily chores. And eventually when that money comes once a year, the mothers are so scared that the money will get spent, that they will get their girl children married off, because they think that is the big burden. And this results in that, first of all, the child has had no proper nutrition at the household level after the land has been given away, because they've had to buy food, and buying food at the household level for families which don't have cash, which don't have animals, is really difficult. And access to protein is almost zero. So such children getting married and they giving birth to children is only recreating that vicious cycle of maternal mortality, infant mortality. And it's reinforcing all the caste and class and religious divisions at the village level. And there have been incidences of trafficking as well. While large landholders, they reinvest that money into setting up many things. It could be taxi services, restaurants, hotels. They also buy bulldozers and rent it out. They set up stone crushing units. This is a stone crushing unit in Pavagada. So this is what the rich farmers do. Whereas for the small and marginal farmers, life becomes extremely difficult. And this is just a look at what is happening at the gender score of the country. The Human Development Index of India, first of all, is at 134 as per the latest report, and the gender inequality is 0.437, which places it at 108. So you see the rank where we stand. And there is also another FAO study which says that women and children in South Asia are prone to extreme hunger and are most vulnerable to climate change. And they've also recorded that the birth weight and anemia is all increasing. So like I said, once a land is gone, there is no food. So it sets in food insecurity, and then all of the land is flattened when it comes to utility scale solar parks. So there is water insecurity, there is livelihood insecurity, and it's not that all these people are getting access to energy. So there is energy insecurity as well. But there were very interesting lessons that we all learned from the pandemic, and that was, we saw thousands walk back to their homes. And what was it that sustained them? It was the traditional livelihoods of pottery, weaving, basket making, and pastoral life. that gave them that security and 2 meals a day and the resilience to kind of fight the uncertainty that the pandemic had caused. But once the pandemic got over, life became business as usual, and these are livelihoods that sustain the small and marginal farmers, because agriculture maximum they get 2 crops in a year, even in good agricultural lands, rain-fed agricultural lands, or even irrigated land, sometimes 3, but otherwise they depend on all these other livelihoods, which brings them that additional income. And these are livelihoods that are so slowly perishing. And in the context of climate change, if we really have to cut down on carbon emissions, these are livelihoods that are not connected to the grid. They hardly emit anything, right? So this is a serious area that needs attention and doesn't find any mention anywhere in any of the plans. So what are the possibilities that can go into the policy? So we need to understand the agroecological landscape in each region. There cannot be a one-size-fits-all policy everywhere. Every state, every region needs to look at what kind of land, what kind of water, what kind of topography exists and what can be grown there. And then protecting the commons, particularly the grasslands and the lakes and forest ecosystems, is very critical. And the current climate policy nowhere has any guideline whatsoever, like I said, to protect these very critical ecosystems. All the commons have become vulnerable to the renewable energy projects. And that is a big threat both to water security, food security, and many other things. Then, of course, there is the issue of livelihood at the village level, for which energy has to coexist with agropastoral activity. And this is largely missing in our policies. And there needs to be a lot of dialogue with the industry and with the investor as well. There have to be safeguards that are built in at all levels so that everybody speaks the same language. And energy, non-conventional energy, is a subject of the panchayat. So if you look at the 11th schedule, it is the panchayat that should be implementing the renewable energy systems. And so, but today we have reduced them to bodies who only give no objection certificates. That needs to change. Every village can think of the energy needs it requires, whether it is cottage industry or MSMEs or for agriculture itself, and generate that much amount of energy within the village itself. And cities can have rooftop, and I really don't see a point in generating energy several kilometers away and having these transmission lines, adding to the mess of the transmission lines, and destroying critical habitats like that of the great Indian bustard or the black buck or the lesser florican or the Bengal florican. There are a list of animals that are listed as threatened under the Schedule 1. And it looks like we are on a mission mode to create, renewable energy parks where all these fragile ecosystems exist. And we are slowly going to push these flora and fauna into extinction. And once we lose them, we don't even know what we are losing, because they form a very important point in the ecosystem. For example, the great Indian bustard keeps a check on the reptiles of the area, the insects of the area, or other animals which could be a problem to the farmers. So if this major link is moved out, you will not even know what implications it will have, right? So these are areas that we have not focused attention on when writing these policies and programs and schemes. And then skill training. I hear many people saying renewable energy is creating jobs and women are getting jobs. It is not really true, because big park like the Pavagada Solar Park, 13,000 acres, employs only 2,000 people. It does not require even 2,000 perhaps. And all of this includes the engineers who maintain these solar panels, people who clean it, the security guards, the facility managers, and others. But if you look at 1 acre of land, it probably sustains more than 4 or 5 people through the year. So what happens to the remaining people, right? There aren't any skills that are being built at the rural level, because most of the skill training programs that are offered by the government, they mandate that the entry level should be an ITI pass or a diploma holder. Across the country, rural areas, children hardly reach class 8. And even if they reach class 8, many studies have shown that they are not able to read and write properly. So given that condition, it's impossible that they will get access to these courses. It is not that developing renewable energy skills are some kind of rocket science. There are good examples from Rajasthan itself. We've all heard about a college there set up by Bankim Roy and Arjuna Roy, where local people had been trained to install, repair solar panels and a variety of other skills that have been built. So it is possible to rethink what can be done. But if you look at the kind of vocational training skills that are being offered at the rural level, it is mostly tailoring and beauty parlor for women. For men, it is some taxi driving or something else. That needs to change, because that is only reinforcing gender, and that needs a whole different kind of an imagination, and it requires a lot of input from sociologists, public health professionals and industry as well, and variety of other people. And even our ITI and diplomas that we have today have become redundant because AI has taken over everywhere. And in each of these cases, having a ground up plan is very important. I think every village should have a climate action plan for that village, because the needs of one village are very different from the needs of another village. And energy need not come from rural areas to urban areas. Urban areas can generate their own rooftop energy, and I think we should also start talking about reducing the use of energy, because resources are finite at the end of the day. We cannot go on consuming like this. And another point that I would like to add is, everywhere now across the world, we are moving towards, at least there is dialogue on a earth-centric law and earth-centric decision making. So we need to slowly move towards that and start looking at things from the point of the earth, and not from the point of what man is enjoying, what human beings are enjoying from the earth, right? So with that, I will stop and we can take questions. There are also a lot of readings that I have put in here. I would urge all of you all to browse through these readings, and there's also a short film that is included. I would urge you to watch that film also, which will give you a better understanding of such ecosystems and where our policy lacks certain key points that can be implemented to meet the current climate crisis. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for providing such an enlightening session. The floor is now open for question and answer. Please put your questions in the Q&A box or raise your hand to voice your question. There are some questions that are already visible in the question.
Okay, I'll take them. Yeah, does the LAR Act recognize the uneven impacts of land dispossessions on smaller holder and large landowners? If not, what can be suitable protective policy measures and how can it accommodate this? Higher compensation rates, alternative land entitlements, job guarantees. Yes, so if you implement the LAR Act, everybody will get some kind of a proper compensation. Whereas the current method of dodging the LAR Act is leaving communities with despair and in a situation where they cannot come out of the kind of poverty the system is pushing them into, right? So that is something, I hope I answered your question. Any other question? Yes, Asta, go ahead. Sorry, Indu. You can unmute and ask, Indu.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, the scenario you have presented is it is very threatening. Like I have never taken the implementation of solar or renewable energy as a threat, and this is very enlightening. This is a very enlightening session, and I am from the part of Kerala, Palakkad. It's an agrarian society, and I can see the solar panels implanted in the green fields where rice or paddy was cultivated. And how you see the this decline in the agriculture in the coming years in this kind of regions?
Yes, most certainly, because food security will definitely be threatened. We can cover the entire country with panels and windmills, which is made of polyfibers. We can have enough electricity perhaps at the end of the day, but you can't eat electricity, right? You need to have food. So a proper assessment needs to be made at the village level on what kind of crops are being grown in this village. Can we afford to forego growing these crops? What will be the implication on the local people? Who are the most vulnerable in our village? Do we have a plan for them? That kind of a situational analysis has to be done before implementing any of these projects. That is never done. So what is happening is we are in a rush because we have promised that we will shift to renewable energy by a certain time. We've also said we'll get some 500 gigawatts of power from RE. We'll shift to at least 50%, 48 to 50% of our power needs is going to come from RE. We've made these big promises, and when we made those promises, it was not that the states and the panchayats were consulted. So now, because somebody has promised, we all have to, we're going on a mission mode with blindfolds on either side. There's some noise in the background. Yeah. We're going on this mission mode with blindfolded, and our only focus now is to install solar parks and have windmills and various other, even the waste to energy plants are being pushed in the name of renewable energy. I've only spoken about energy related issues in the context of solar mission. There are a whole lot of challenges when it comes to the sustainable habitats or water issue or the afforestation related issues. There are so many other issues as well. I haven't even touched that, right? So a study at the local village to understand the local situation and then ask the people of the village for a climate action plan, and then build a climate action plan, then build your renewable energy system. Make sure the landscape is not completely changed, even if we have to install big solar parks. So these are things that need to be decided at the local level. So this one size fits all is what is causing a lot of problem today.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Good evening, madam.
Yes,
Very
Mr. Ba.
interesting and pertinent, lecture. I enrich much with it, and probably the participation they also enrich much. They came to know the policy facet of your climate change policy, all that. I have to also deliver. Probably last date September 28th. Well, when I would like to share my experience to even participate. When I was on the process of formulation of second plan of Bagmati constituency, there are six constituency in Nepal, and it consists with the mountain region and upper hill. Then after Tarai, probably, I think in mountain region and hill region, one can have, the peltic set like that, peltic set, micro hydel, renewable energy project, with a local initiative. And some of the cooperative, they are belong to electricity generation. And I suggested them to promote, such initiative rather to keep the, solar panel, even the water is abundant, in the hilly side, why not to motivate local people, when you electrified local people, their children, they can educate their children, and they can run small petty enterprises, we always think of big thing, that is sometimes, it is good, but the mountain may perish after 1 or 2 decades due to climate change. So we have to have some alternation, at local level. Thank you very much. Nice to meet you.
Same here. Thank you very much. Very true. So, there are a variety of ways in which this issue can be addressed, but unfortunately, we are not doing that. Thank you for sharing your experience. Yes. Any more questions? Indu, do you have one more question? I see your hand raised. Neela,
Okay.
please go ahead. Please go ahead, Neela.
Yeah. Bhargavi, I think very, very apt discussion. In the name of renewable energy, they are really doing so many different kinds of things, and from solar to wind, and then to hydrogen, and to whatever. They keep coming with new carrots to be dangled at everybody, and everybody thinks that the one is one. And most of the time they all use fossil fuels to even start their the whole thing, like for the hydrogen or for. I was at the COP28 where I asked these questions. I was literally thrown out of the session for asking that, why are you asking this kind of question when EV is the norm, and if there's a EV, that means definitely you also have to have more panels, and you have to have more batteries. So which is the bigger evil? We have to first decide that, and that nobody really thinks.
Yes.
And this thing about land grabbing, and I have been speaking about this in various, because I know I am known more for bamboo, so other things gets completely eclipsed, is raising the level of at which they actually put the panels, so that at least the lower area of that at least can be used for shade loving plants or vegetables and things like that, which is for some reason or the other, the manufacturers of these, they don't want to do this. And when you come to installing them in cities, I had such a bad experience in the last 6 months solar water heating system. I have a south roof. It is particularly for not using terrace space, not using any green space, so that I put it on the top. And this guy's and I already have 3 kilowatt, now 5 kilowatt solar installed on my rooftop, and the water had to be done. And they made me run around for 4 months telling that your on the slope it cannot be done, and then your tank is not proper, this is not proper, line is not proper. Ultimately, and I had completely put my foot down, nowhere else, just on that slope. I don't want to waste space anywhere. And and it is now I'm getting good water, without changing any position, anything. I have done my roof also with the angle that's required for Bangalore. All these things you try to do, but these manufacturers and these people who have this kind of, the whole mentality is just to sell their product and run off. They're not bothered whether it is actually effective, not effective, what is happening. Is almost like that. And so house also, I have not done the smart metering because, again, the batteries, they also use a lot of precious minerals. And of course, the solar panels also use a lot of minerals, but also the batteries are like every 10 years or 4 years or 5 years, you have to replace. So there's a lot of toxicity which is going on in the environment. So that's another these things. But people are somehow, these suppliers and vendors, they're completely against when you're trying to minimize the impact of this renewable energy thing that when you talk about. And people are not really accepting the fact that we it's more like again a market. Like COP28 was the most suppliers market rather than social activists who were more concerned about the nuances of how these things are impacting the community and the people. They're simply not and that's why what you spoke about today, I think all the sessions that I have heard, this was one of the, I really like this session a lot because it's really touching the chord where people are really getting affected by this and nobody is really bothered. As you said, this thing of doing big parks, solar parks and things like that, talking about it, and I'm sorry to use this word, it's utter nonsense actually. I'm sorry, I have just lost my patience with people around and talking about it so many. It's really bad. It's really bad. It's just one carrot after the other, a bigger carrot or a brighter carrot or something like that. But again, it's business as usual.
Yeah.
There's nothing more green than the earlier one and something like that. And yes, lesser uses is the only way I think forward. Minimum usage.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. If we are able to reduce one bulb in our house, each house,
Correct.
and if you calculate it into the city and then across the country and across the world, I don't think we need any new power stations in this world any further.
Correct. Yes.
And these are very simple things. And people don't like simple things because they think that their secrets will be out. Something like that. And I like to simplify things, that just, one bulb less, this thing less, one fan less, better ventilation, better natural lighting. And you can do wonders with very simple acts.
Yes.
So I just wanted to share that, and I congratulate you. It's really very good session.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So to the benefit of our audience, all the participants, Dr. Neelam Manjunath is an architect and she's doing some spearheading work in promoting bamboo in Bangalore and various other states. So that also reminds me of, if the states really want to do something about climate action, one is bamboo, which is fast growing and it can be planted practically everywhere, in homes, in parks. Today, Bangalore has a lot of parks, but then we have some exotic water guzzling ornamental plants. We hardly have any indigenous plants. And another issue is, for example, for water, we do have the Bangalore Water Supply Sewerage Board Act was amended to ensure that at least those people with a site of 30 by 50 would harvest water, and they made it mandatory. but less than 10% have constructed the water harvesting systems. So if similar laws can be brought in, if everybody who has 30 by 50 and above house sizes in area, if everybody is mandated to put solar, and if some kind of subsidies, loans are made available, I'm sure every rooftop in the city can be secured with some amount of solar power. The poor neighborhoods, I think, with all the CSR money that is going in all kinds of directions, can be focused towards providing solar power to the poorer neighborhoods. And most of the parking areas can have solar power. All the government buildings, the schools, the public health centers can have solar parks. So a city can become self-sustained with solar energy. It does not have to come at the cost of planting it somewhere else and bringing all that power and running all these transmission lines, which are a huge a problem. And also, if you see what has happened in the courts, I did not touch upon that point, but we'll quickly run you through it. Way back in 2012, Environment Support Group, an organization based in Bangalore, was challenging the establishment of a science city in a grassland area where a solar park also came up. So when we challenged it, the NGT very clearly directed the Ministry of Environment and Forest and Climate Change to go back and re-look at their decision about having removed solar parks from the purview of environmental clearances. And even that was done through an office memorandum at the MOEF and CC. But since then, nothing has been done at the MOEF level. They continue to hold on to the position that RE projects are benign and they don't cause any pollution. So when we say they don't cause any pollution, yes, today they are not causing pollution. But if you look at any of these solar parks where land is taken for a minimum period of 25 to 30 years, at the end of 30 years, all these solar panels will land up there, and those communities who today are bearing the brunt of having parted with the land will also be bearing the situation with the toxicity from the solar panels. And we don't have a policy to clean that up, right? So these are things that have kind of missed attention from the decision makers. And to quickly go through some of the court cases. So now renewable energy has become like the panacea for climate change. So there was a case at the NGT referred to as the Om Dat Singh case, where an irrigation project was submerging forest, but it got rejected. And another waste to energy project called Sukhdev Vihar case, referred to as the Sukhdev Vihar case at the NGT, again got rejected because this waste to energy is looked up as a clean development mechanism case. So like that, there are so many other cases as well. And the most famous is the what came earlier this year, which is the Great Indian Bustard case. Tomorrow we do have a panel discussion on the same. I would urge all of you all to attend that. But just to kind of let you know a little bit, the transmission lines are running across the habitat of the Great Indian Bustard. In India, we have just about 150 birds left. In fact, less than that, because a recent news clip from Karnataka said that we have only 2. I spoke about the case that we took to NGT in 2012. In the same case, we also addressed the issue of the Great Indian Bustard, because the science city where it came up was also the habitat for the Great Indian Bustard. So at that point, while the court acknowledged it's a habitat of the Great Indian Bustard, it only directed the Karnataka government to do something about having a state action plan. Karnataka government did very little, and the result is what we see now. So similarly, Andhra had no state action plan. Andhra Pradesh saw its last Great Indian Bustard about 2 years ago. And there are very few left in Maharashtra. And today we've come to the last 150, and in the name of climate change, we have said that those transmission lines can pass because human life, the Article 21, which we refer to as right to life, will be at stake because everybody is affected by climate change. So this judgment is going to push more of these projects in the name of climate change. We're going to have transmission lines crisscrossing across the country. And Neelam also brought about the green hydrogen issue. Green hydrogen requires a lot of fresh water. Where is the fresh water? How much are we going to desalinate if we are using seawater, right? So these are questions we need to engage with at all levels, at our home level, at our institution level, be it college, school, offices, and everybody needs to kind of help our local governments look into these matters and at least set all the wrong right in the coming years. This morning, I was also in a meeting with industry people and other government people. I have seen that initially there is a lot of denial when you highlight all these issues, but slowly they get into a conversation, they try and understand. So a lot more dialogue is what is required when we are talking about these issues. So I hope I've not crossed the time. Do we have more questions?
There are 3 in the chat box.
Okay. Yeah, so what can be done to ensure more equity and justice for the people who are losing their land on the pretext of expanding energy security? Are there any EIAs done before such projects are introduced? So, like I said, all the RE projects are removed from the purview of environmental clearances. So there are no EIAs, there are no public consultations. But today, the investors are saying you should have an EIA, particularly if it is a international investment agency, or sometimes the developers themselves to show that they are ESG abiding company. And also to indicate, what we call as a sustainability index. They want all those indices to be looking very nice. So for that sake, they do some EIAs. But after doing the EIAs, the projects that unfold there are no different. So first of all, yes, we need to bring all renewable energy projects under the purview of proper environmental clearances, where there are meaningful public consultations, not eyewash public consultations. And then see if a particular project even needs to come. And utility scale parks are not the answer. So if you see what is happening in the country today, all those who were operating the big thermal power plants and who were into coal mining are also the ones doing renewable energy. So the utility scale solar parks benefits only the developers. It is not really to help the people. And is it fair for those of us sitting in cities to say that I need renewable energy? Yes, but it can come as far as 4 hours away from me at the cost of women and children in Pavagada being subjected to a whole lot of challenges. Is that fine? Am I fine with that kind of energy? So can I engage with the energy secretary of our state and ask him more questions, ask the right questions so that the right decisions can take place? So that is where we all need to start. And also, if you see what is happening in the country, in the north and the northeast is where all the coal mining and a major chunk of the thermal power also is happening. And in the south and the southwest is where all the renewable energy is happening. There are studies which have shown that, the solar irradiation over the country, particularly the south and southwest, is not going to be the same because of climate change itself. There's going to be cloud cover. So the efficiency of these panels are not going to be the same. And then there are also studies which say that the wind speeds are not going to be the same. So in such a scenario, we are just unfolding this sea of glass and acres and acres of all these windmills. But if these companies don't make profit, they might probably just abandon that and go elsewhere for something else at that whatever point of time in history. This is what happened to the Jatropa when we thought that biofuel can be got from that. Every farmer was asked to plant Jatropa, and for some reason things didn't work out. They just abandoned everything and moved elsewhere to greener fields of other businesses. And those who had taken away their cash crops or their food crops and planted Jatropa suffered a lot. So we should ensure that we are not going to get into that. Agro-voltaic is the answer, provided the local village is up for it, the local farmers are up for it. All that it requires is to increase the height of the panels. That can be done. It's going to cost a little bit for the company, but it's a one-time investment with little social impact. And there are studies again that show that the microclimate created by the plants under the solar panels increases the efficiency of the solar panels itself, and the warmth of the solar panels apparently increases the harvest of the horticulture that is grown under the panels. There are some studies to say that. So those things can be implemented. So the government's own Kusum project, I am told, is doing well in certain parts of the country. So that is probably the answer, if I answered your question. I saw some questions just disappear. Is it because I answered them? Okay, then Dr. Jai has to say, recently we had horrifying floods in Vadodara, where nearly 60% of the city was underwater due to heavy rains over the last 2 days. Poor stormwater drainage management, poor riverine ecosystem management, river Vishwamitri, and unplanned releases of thousands of cusecs of water mass from the reservoir. How does one pin down accountability and on whom? Nexus between local government, builders, encroachment, who bear the loss of crores of rupees of small business. So there is only blame game. What are the policies towards the accountability? Yes, I think this is an area that again demands a lot of civic action, because we have master plans that come out for every city. And when those master plans come, half the plans are not there, or even if some of the plans are there, it is not available to everybody. There are no proper public consultations that happen. It's only when the bulldozer comes we get to know a particular project is happening. So that needs to change, and the local citizens have to be part of the city planning. Without proper consultations, we should ensure that those things happen. But to get there, we are way behind. There needs to be a lot of awareness at all levels. So I think working at the local level, working at the ward level is important, for which we need to ensure at least the 73rd and the 74th Amendment is implemented. So at the ward level, people can come together. And in many areas, many cities, people argue with me that the resident welfare associations are doing well, but the resident welfare associations are only for those probably the middle class and above, who can form these associations and work for the good of their society. It is not going to talk for the urban poor. Whereas if it is at the ward committee, everybody comes together, everybody addresses the problem, and problems can be resolved. That is something we need to really focus on, and also work with the local town and country planning department in the municipality, because that is a department that hardly pays attention to the rules of what is written in their own books. So a lot of attention needs to also go there. I think we've crossed the stage where we could go on blaming somebody. It is time we all sit together and redraw everything. it is difficult engaging with people who don't want to listen to us, but then a critical mass is very important. One or two voices can hardly make a difference, but when critical mass is there, then there is a lot of strength in pushing the needle, or at least stopping a major disaster from happening or slowing down a particular disastrous project. These are things that we have seen that has happened across India, and I draw a lot of inspiration from those kind of stories, and those stories need to be told and retold to ensure we move towards a proper mitigation plan.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It was a beautiful talk. And you know what? Now the CM has announced a Vishwamitri Riverfront Development Plan, which is still further going to mess up the entire riverine ecosystem. It's housed to crocodiles, and it's going to be totally messed up. So an action that the government has taken is it is against the ecosystem, and again there's going to be more flooding, and so it's really, I mean, there's so much of public outrage now, but I don't know if it's really going to, people are going to get onto streets or going to have some community action. We really don't know. This is maybe a temporary outrage. Again, within 2 years, there'll be election, they'll be electing the same people. All possibilities. But it's been, very difficult.
Yeah, I agree with you. I've seen the Ahmedabad riverfront development when it was lauded as the way to rejuvenate rivers in cities. And I was quite appalled the first few times when I went there and saw the amount of cement that has been poured, and what happened to the poorer communities who got displaced.
Absolutely.
And that is a model that is taking shape everywhere. So I think a lot more studies from academia, working with naturalists, working with sociologists, putting data out there is very important. And I think I see a lot of citizen initiatives these days where they have done excellent studies, and once that information is available, then people, it is power to the people. When the right information is out there, it is power to the people, and people sitting in the city municipality offices or various other agencies, they can no longer say, what you're saying is wrong. So that kind of research is also very important. And that's the only way I think we can go forward, because given the fact that those of us who speak out are also silenced in so many ways,
right?
Critical mass, good research, asking the right questions, and coming together. There has to be a lot of coordination across disciplines and across sectors. We can no longer think only for ourselves. It's only then we can make our cities livable. And also when it comes to climate action plans, working again from the bottom up is very important. Somehow the middle class and upwardly mobile people will somehow escape. But it is the poor who will be facing, complete devastation, because their homes are flooded, their things will go away, and again to rebuild that life, there is no documentation, there is nobody who's going to support them to rebuild their lives. So starting from them and ensuring they are truly resilient, and not just to use the word resilience, but truly capable of handling a situation like that with basic things like food, water, mobility, access to public health. Those are the simple things that are completely lacking in our cities. So when disaster strikes, be it heat waves or floods, those are the things that are missing. Helplines, phone numbers. So yeah, I think it's 5 o'clock, but thank you so much. We have the next speaker talking about the same thing on resilience and building adaptation. So I will stop and eager to listen to him as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your comprehensive and engaging talk. We hope to see you in future IMPRI events as well. Moving on to our next session, I am honored to invite Professor Anil K. Gupta, Professor and Head ECDRM, HOD, Director of Projects and Center of Excellence and International Cooperation, National Institute of Disaster Management, New Delhi. Sir will guide us through the topic Climate Change and Human and National Security, Call for Innovations, Science and Technology, and Startups. Over to you, sir.
So, good afternoon from New Delhi, and compliments to the IMPRI family. Excellent series of programs which are being organized. So let me share my screen so that we can have this structured discussion. Is my screen visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I am making it full screen, so please confirm that also. So I made it full screen. Can you see?
Sir. Yes, sir.
And is it moving?
Yes, sir. It's moving.
Okay, perfect, perfect. So I was listening to previous talk also, and there were excellent discussion. Very good questions were also there following the talk. And I'll be talking of some concerns and also some lessons from the recent projects. And how do we see climate change with perspective of security, both national security also, and the human security at large. And what kind of opportunities, what kind of the interventions are now needed, particularly for our young generations, for coming to the innovations, better use of modern science and technology, and looking at business opportunities. So this picture is a bit common, which is about that the climate science is not a short journey, it's a very long journey. In fact, 1820, the first research on climate change related issues started. But now the contexts have changed. Earlier, the studies were more focused on atmospheric processes, various factors contributing to greenhouse gases, global warming, this kind of thing. Now the things are more regarding the safety, security, adaptation, resilience, disaster risk reduction, and policy domains, climate finance. So this is a big shift that has come because a lot of scientific development has given us a clear idea what kind of possible scenarios are there of climate change and what are the likely consequences if we do not address them in an effective manner. This is a picture of the recent incident that India faced, Wayanad landslide. Still, the misery is not over because any disaster cannot be over in just few weeks' time. There are a lot of implications. So how do we look at various such kind of incidences like flash floods, landslides, riverine floods, and a wide number of urban flooding that is taking place, heat wave that is taking place? Look at this picture. So this brings another dimension that we often refer that maybe the socio-economic dimensions or demographic dimensions or the vulnerability dimensions. So India is a different country, different developmental setting altogether from the other developed countries. So the thought process has to take consideration of the Indian own context as well. So this picture I brought that these kind of congregations and many times related on the water bodies. So and water is also connected with the implications of climate change. So there are issues of climate change and health related context also. Now this picture also brings some context of security because this is showing the reverse migration during COVID period. So I am showing the picture of reverse migration, but the story that I want to tell is migration. So, and that period only, we came to know that a huge population is our major cities is made of migrant people. And from where these migrant people come, I think this very, very important aspect to have a clear understanding and recognition that these migrant people are coming primarily from climatic disaster prone areas. So we may call them climate refugees or environment refugees or disaster refugees as well. And this is a scenario of the Indian population from one place to other place. But this kind of scenarios are possible cross boundary also. So there are many countries suffering from migration issues cross boundary as well. And this picture is showing that cross-boundary migration. In fact, between India and Bangladesh, Myanmar, Bangladesh, India, these kind of issues have different lateral dimensions also. Many times we consider only a political and social dimensions, but on the in the backdrop of that, basically this climate migration or climate refugees aspect is very important. So, displacement and migration is one major concern for human security as well as national security also. As we have been discussing, we have been facing such kind of challenge. Then resource competition. When the supplies are in scarcity and needs are expanding, needs are growing. For example, many times we come to know about the conflicts between the society or communities and the industry. Sometimes the conflict between government and industry. For example, for water resources, and maybe for other resources also, land is certainly one of the very important dimensions. So climate change is aggravating this, and there are a number of studies and number of case studies on this aspect available. And the third is infrastructure vulnerability. We recall 2014 Hudud cyclone. Visakhapatnam airport was blown away in heavy winds. Chennai airport got marooned in past many times, 2-3 times, I think, and more than 15 days, 20 days, it was underwater. So there are several such examples where climate-related extreme events that led to disasters have affected the infrastructure systems. So these are the three major dimensions that create the crisis situations, transboundary as well as for the human society. So what are the important aspects that emerge for us to think and work on? One is disaster response challenges. When many times what happens, we are preparing for a flood response and we get the news of drought. Many times we preparing for drought related relief and relief mechanism and we get the news of a flash flood. So, and these kind of challenges are growing, that one disaster and just adjacent to that is an entirely different kind of disaster. Uh, if we just look at 1 week climate, the data, the rainfall and humidity and temperature data, we will find that in one district or maybe part of the district, there is a departure positive side. There is a heavy rainfall, more than 200% high rainfall, but just next district or next taluka, there may be a deficit rainfall even to the level of 90% deficit or 80% deficit or 40% deficit. These kind of challenges are increasing. So there is a huge problem to a disaster response system that at the same time we have to respond to multiple kinds of challenges. And then climate change is not only contributing to extreme events or the hazard events, but also contributing to vulnerable people. More and more people are now facing livelihood challenges. The reasons in Himalayan states, there is a huge problem of male migration and then livelihood challenges. So when livelihood challenges are there, it results into the economic vulnerability, socio-economic vulnerability. And there may be other dimensions like the health, education, other factors are also affected. But vulnerabilities are not common and not same for each and every section of the society. For example, male population is affected differently. Women are affected differently. And then Even if we talk about the peri-urban areas and cities, the poor children are affected differently, and within poor children, then the girl child is affected much more complex way. So we need to basically look into these matters, that what kind of security concerns are there. Even now studies are there that the women protection, the protection of the girl child when they are going to schools or when they are going for play and sports and other things. That also has the linkages. For example, the impact of climate extremes on the water sanitation systems, waste management system, contributing to health-related challenges also. And what happens because of this, that amplify the conflict situations. Many times we find that the issues between two states on water-related things, maybe sometimes the water is released from one state and the other state is facing floods. Arunachal and Assam, then some states in southern India, and many countries also. So these kind of challenges are being discussed: India, Bangladesh, Nepal, India. So there are these kind of issues, and that aggravates the sufferings of the people as well. This is one picture I was talking about. That 1 week forecast, for example, Chhattisgarh, we are seeing that 90%, 95% deficit in the rainfall, but Assam 7% excess, Rajasthan 220% excess. This is of last year, 1 week. I think it was September or somewhere. This picture. So these kind of challenges. At the same time, we have to prepare for drought, floods, and many times in September is a cyclone season also. So we have to prepare for multiple kind of disaster risk at the same time. Again, COVID has brought the health concerns at the forefront of our sustainable development, or the holistic development thought process. And the health that we are talking about, health is one major dimension of climate change impact on the human being. Not only human being, but all other animals also. And then that finally results in aggravating the challenges to human being, because zoonosis, so diseases coming from the animal stock to human being, that is also being talked about. Now, there is the news about the monkeypox, these kind of things. So newer dimensions are coming. But otherwise also, heat is now recognized major disaster challenge in India. So these kind of challenges are being aggravated. Dengue has become widespread. Then chikungunya has become widespread. So disease outbreak and disease spread has intensified and become so wider in the country in the wake of climate change. So that is again adding to another layer of human security challenge. About urban flood, which is very, very common issue now globally. And India is not an exception. Most of the towns and cities, including in Rajasthan, where the water has been considered as a scarce resource, or rainfall has been very less, under the impact of climate change, there are a lot of changes in the rainfall pattern. So we are witnessing urban flooding and prolonged waterlogging in cities. This what I am showing is a research publication of 2011 in Current Science, and Chennai was flooded in 2015. So one concern is also there, that scientific studies are there, but how effectively we are using those studies in improving the conditions in our cities before such kind of challenges take place. So many times this also becomes a question, that despite of studies, despite of better plans, if we are not implementing those on the ground, or improving our planning process using these studies, I think that is a big question. Urban flooding now, what I am saying, that has become a very, very common. So any part of the country we find urban flooding. And that is not affecting the entire city same way, but different parts, different transects are affected differently. For example, peri-urban areas where poor people are, low economic groups are there. But That is very important because a number of ecosystems are there. Ecosystem service point of view, the peri-urban systems are very, very important. And because of this, we have started talking about the approach of urban watershed-based urban planning concept, or urban landscape dimensions, the role of urban wetlands in flood protection. So neo dimensions are coming. This is one publication based on our experience of dealing with COVID. So during COVID, we also had to manage heat wave. During COVID, which was a global disaster, we also had to manage with drought. Two major cyclones, two super cyclones came while COVID. One disaster, that was LG Polymer chemical industrial accident, was also there. Then in Bhilai also there was one accident in Chhattisgarh. So there are situations where multiple disasters take place at the same time. So how do we look at this? So climate concerns have brought this as a key requirement, that we move from single hazard approach to multi-hazard risk modeling, or multi-hazard risk assessment, and multi-hazard risk management preparedness. So this I thought that I should bring into the discussion today. I was talking about infrastructure, but infrastructure, many times we plan our infrastructure in isolation from other departments or other infrastructures. But when we look at the functionality or the business continuity of these infrastructures, we find that there are a lot of interconnectivity. For example, the water, if we talk about the hydropower system, so water is important for hydropower, and hydropower that produces electricity is important for the water supply systems, or the transport systems, or the railways, and they even the electricity is important for the functioning of the hospitals, particularly operation, surgeries, and other things. So there are a lot of interconnectivity, and therefore an effective coordinated approach for infrastructure resilience is also needed. And we know that if city infrastructure or the industrial infrastructure fails, what kind of security challenges would be there. Now, even entire surveillance, entire the criminal investigation, criminal justice, criminal control systems, also based on automated systems that uses electricity. So what kind of redundancy, what kind of backup approaches, our hospitals, what kind of backup approaches are required for the subset facilities. These are also the issues. This is one study I wanted to share with you. This is first of this kind of study anywhere in the world. It's some kind of we can say it a non-stationary kind of analysis. So 3 periods were considered: the Yokohama period, that was pre-Hyogo, and the Hyogo period, and the Sendai period. That how the disease, how the impact of climatic disasters and biological disasters in India across various states and UTs changed during these periods. So whether there was any impact of the policy changes, and how the occurrence and the impact was there. So this study was done, and this has become a very useful reference for revisiting the disaster management plan for all the states and UTs now, because it is giving quite micro level pictures to fine tune the plans. So this study is also available on the NIDM's website and other website also. We also had one very unique study. People are talking about disaster damage and losses, like COP 26, COP 27, and COP 28 also of UNFCCC. The focus, major focus is on loss and damage. They call it L&D. And that is the focus is on the assessment, effective assessment, including the economic and non-economic the losses and damages. But we need to go one step ahead, and not only the assessment. Basically, the effort has to be on reducing the damage and loss. How do we do that? Because in disasters, we found that despite of the best preparedness, and now, for example, in cyclone, we have very effective early warning also. We have very effective early warning. Even very less error is there in the location and time of the landfall also. Most correct, most accurate kind of forecast. And we have our response agencies at the site well in time. But then also, if some deaths happen, if some damage happened, what was the failure? Whether the failure was on the part of the response management, whether in the communication of the risk, the early warning alerts, or the behavior of the people, behavior of the other stakeholders, local stakeholders, or the affected population. So we conducted a study where, in fact, the interviews of kith and kin were also involved. That the people who got affected, their relatives, their neighbors, we discussed with them also, and then to identify the root causes for the deaths occurred in two major cyclones, Taute and Yas, across 4 states. And based on that, we also came up a mechanism that, in generic terms, we can call it a death audit. That each and every death, there should be audit that what went wrong and the person died, whether it was his own fault or there was some kind of a natural factor involved, some technical factor involved, or there was some kind of a lacuna, so that we can improve the response mechanism and also the preparedness. So this was another study that I wanted to share to the delegates. We had a number of pilot projects in the country, and pilots were basically to come up with demonstrable models, and we can showcase that yes, climate change adaptation, integrated disaster risk management planning is possible. But how do we do that? So the approach that we evolved, we call it shared learning. So this basically, if some of the delegates might have heard of a Gorakhpur model, basically the first pilot was in Gorakhpur district of Uttar Pradesh. That is a chronically flood-prone area, and also known for Japanese encephalitis. There we worked, and the approach was that through this shared learning, we worked for developing departmental plans with including disaster management and climate change adaptation, and then coming to the district plan. So two major factors: understanding of the vulnerability, and then based on that, building resilience. So we talked about the systems, agents, and institutions. So basically, this is an approach that we call it a climate resilience framework, CRF. This is the Gorakhpur model, and based on that, this training module has been developed. In fact, not only in India, many neighboring countries also, where the district approach is there, they are using this as an example to develop climate-sensitive disaster management at district level. This is showing that how we identified various key departments at the district level, and then how do we look at basically the scaling. So like neighborhood, then ward and city level. So if we are talking about the city level climate risk management, so we have to go at the household level, and then the wards as a unit, so that it doesn't remain as a policy, but actually we are able to take to the actions also, an action plan and action, and also allocation of resources. This is another example based on a policy research study of Bundelkhand, which has been very unique, and the new tool that is called mitigation analysis. So many times we are talking about the risk analysis, but it is not only the risk, but also the resilience. So there are, at the same time, there are several efforts to control the risk, or to mitigate the risk, or to address the risk, prepare against the risk, and adapt against the risk. So what is basically the spatial extent of those interventions, and what is the benefit of those that helps in reducing the risk? So we evolved a new tool called mitigation analysis through this study. And very interestingly, when we discuss about the adaptation mechanism based on the vulnerability studies, the two major dimensions came. That people, many times the researchers refer to natural resource management related dimensions, but here the social capitals also emerged as very, very important dimensions in the ground implementation of such kind of lessons. Then we are talking about, for example, the cleaner energy promotion, or the green growth, circular economy. We need to be a little cautious, and we need to also understand that what are the lateral challenges involved. For example, in India, we have excellent solar potential, and India has taken a leadership by promoting International Solar Alliance also. And our solar systems in India have multiplied almost, I would say, almost 16, 17 times over last 7, 8, or 9 years time. But interestingly, a high solar potential in India is in the locations which are also prone to either high winds or cyclones or earthquake. So our solar systems are also vulnerable to cyclonic and other kind of disasters. And if such kind of challenges are affecting our solar systems, how do we deal with that kind of waste, which is a hazardous waste? So I think these are the new challenges which are coming up, and that also calls the application of technology alongside the policy. And the young people who are thinking about the entrepreneurship, who are thinking about the new startups, these ideas may be useful to come up with solutions, and then look at the business opportunity there. For example, the green growth benefits, green buildings. How do we really think of green roof and green buildings? I'm not talking of the green buildings that having the glass. That may be inappropriate for Indian conditions. So we need to customize the green building concept of Europe and other countries. We need to customize for India. That is also a great business opportunities, because cities are growing and cities are transforming also. Then land is a limiting factor, particularly in cities, industrial areas, and now in the rural areas also. So the area in transition, that we call it peri-urban system. So which is partly urban and partly rural. We need to look at that area also, because this area is a very important transect in our land use. But as yet, we have not yet recognized it. We do not have any regulations or policy about peri-urban systems. So there is a huge opportunity to work on this aspect, because new institutions, new hospitals, new recreation areas, new facilities, industries, the resorts, these are coming in these areas. But these areas are also very rich in ecosystems, and they are providing a lot of resiliency services to the cities. Then when we are talking about climate change and also disaster management, we should also look at that how disasters are affecting our ecosystems and environment, and how disasters are destroying our efforts of climate mitigation. I'm just giving one example. One cyclone Fani, uprooted several thousands of trees. And trees are the carbon sequestration. So we put a lot of effort in carbon sequestration. We put a lot of money also. And one cyclone uproots that. So we need to, I'm sorry, we need to take these kind of things also into consideration, and to see that if we are developing any kind of plantations, what kind of new designs, what kind of selection of species can be there, so that has lesser harm in terms of in the event of disasters. And how do we integrate the sustainability concerns in the entire cycle of disaster management? For example, during disaster relief and response, if we are using so much of plastics and polythenes, that is again going to create hazards and the future disaster risk as well. So I think we need to look at this. And globally, now there are a lot of discussions about disaster waste management. There are discussions about greening disaster response relief, green recovery. So these are also the newer dimensions, which also offers a lot of business opportunities. And recently, I met some startups also, which have come up with new ideas and develop business the interventions as well. Then recently, we have come up with a manual that how do we look at nature-based solutions and integrate into district level planning process. I think that is also very important. How do we look at the wetland services in terms of disaster risk management and adaptation, and how do we mainstream into city planning? How do we mainstream into village planning? How do we mainstream into district level planning process? So that has also been an effort from our team. Then this concern is important. When we are talking about vulnerability, people are differently vulnerable. These are some publications from our side, jointly with some international partners, on children's vulnerability in the context of climate change. So nutritional vulnerability, water sanitation vulnerability, health-related challenges, protection-related challenges. This is a compendium of case studies for Government of Maharashtra that has been developed. So it was focused on drought, floods, and the urban systems. We also did a very unique kind of study that was for the developing a scorecard-based risk and resilience study for 4 cities. Because city resilience is one of the top agenda in disaster risk management and also in climate change adaptation globally. But there are huge number of parameters and how to make a quick assessment. So this was a unique study for 4 cities, Guwahati, Jaipur, Visakhapatnam, and Srinagar in Kashmir. So this has come up with a new methodology. So I thought of sharing this with you. These are some publications from Springer Nature. One was about COVID, its impact on various sectors. And one was on ecosystem restoration. We are in the period of the international decade for eco restoration. So how do we look at eco restoration from disaster point of view? Now there is huge focus on land restoration, and I would like to quote that when India hosted the 14th Conference of Parties, 14th COP of UNCCD 2019 July in Noida. So one resolution very important that countries decided that we will have to start thinking and working on giving land back to nature. So, but how do we do that? So everyone wants to grab more and more land. Everyone wants more land for development, for other purposes, for our hunger for land, for our hunger for economic advancement. But we have also realized at the same time that we have to start thinking of giving land back to nature. How to bring a balance between these two aspirations? I think this is a critical challenge and brings a dichotomy. Then one recent book on disaster risk and management under climate change. It brings all the perspectives of climate change related disaster management in India. All the Indian case studies are also there. So these are serious dimensions. This is what I was talking about, that how one disaster can bring ecological damage. So that ecological damage has a dimension of loss to the carbon sequestration or the efforts to mitigate climate change, but also impact on livelihood of the people, impact to contribute towards migrating people to other areas. So I think these are very important concerns we need to look at when we are talking about adaptation to climate change and also climate-related disaster management. But whatever I was discussing was primarily that how do we look at disasters, so crisis risk management. So many things about a known situations and a little bit of unknown also, maybe future disasters. And then we talking about climate change adaptation. So adaptability is more for little, maybe medium term, 5 years, 10 years time, something like that. So also considering the black swan events. Black swans are basically very rare events, like COVID also we consider as a black swan events, or the locust attack of 2020 we consider as a black swan events. Uh, uh, so these are the concerns people are discussing mostly. But now the parallel discussions which is coming with huge focus, that is on circular economy and sustainability. But these three dimensions are going separately. So that is one big gap, that these three dimensions have to be integrated and to be seen that what are the interconnectedness. So the crisis management is an important dimension of resilience, and resilience and crisis management are important dimensions of sustainability, have to be seen. So how do we look at the interlinkages is one of the very important dimension that presently we are also working, and several other groups globally are also working. India has certainly emerged as a global leader in the area of disaster management, and also coming up with innovative ideas in climate risk management and climate change adaptation also. The cultural ethos of India basically brings this in our culture across the country, across the landmass of the country, and from our ancient literature also, we have a lot of lessons to value our ecosystems. And the new global initiative that is called lifestyle for environment, the Indian Prime Minister's call, which has been supported globally, is one major step in this direction, and that will help integrate sustainability with the disaster resilience and adaptation. This is the first publication globally, world's first publication on ecosystem approach to DRR that came from India in 2012. So just wanted to share that these kind of interventions are there. Now there are so many publications, certainly on ecosystem approach to DRR, but this was the first one. Then when we are talking about the climate risk, when we are talking about the disaster-related risk, at the same time, the chemical-related accidents and challenges are also there. COVID has taught that the health should be at the forefront. So when these risks and their resilience is being discussed, there should not be these should not be discussed in silos. So what is the solution? So we need to come up with a framework planning concept. So I suggested a new framework planning concept for sustainability and adaptation-centric disaster risk management. So basically, we are coming up and we are trying to come up with some kind of a pilots to evolve some prototypes. So that is very important, that we should have some kind of a demonstrable model, so that we can then scale up and replicate such kind of models of integrated the integrated planning. This is a major project. And again, the first such study anywhere in the world to study 2,000 kilometers of national highway for developing national highway climate adaptation policy and guidelines in India. So more than 200 the codes and standards are being reviewed based on a detailed study of 30 vulnerable sites across India. So high altitude areas, coastal areas, the high heat prone areas, flood prone areas, landslide prone areas are also being discussed. Even sea erosion prone areas, the highways there are also being studied. So final message is that we have been discussing about climate change, climate risk, climate studies, but also realize that there are huge human suffering and also challenges to the national development process, national economy. And then there are issues between on the transboundary dimensions also. So how do we bring a better and a more concerted effort? So what I was talking about, an integrated approach to resilience. So there are several ways of integration. The integration we can talk about different kind of disasters, different kind of elements like climate, health, environment, disaster, these kind of dimensions. Like the Supreme Court in India has asked, a Green Tribunal in India has asked for all the districts to come up with environmental action plan. And the same district also prepares disaster management plan. Now, in the follow-up of the state action plan on climate change, all the districts will be preparing the district action plan on disaster on climate change adaptation. So those should not be in silos. Those should have a clear synergy. So I think that's very, very important, that how do we look at these developing these prototypes and then further scaling up these. And the huge knowledge about adaptation, disaster resilience, the disaster-related humanitarian dimensions, the security concerns. There are so many studies and so many groups across government, the other civil society, research institutions, other experts who are working on those areas. But not all the research or not all the lessons are being utilized in a proper way. So what we have proposed and what we are coming up with a new network approach that is called ADDRESS. So this is Adaptation, Resilience, and Sustainability Network that we are developing under the aegis of Department of Science and Technology, along with various other partners like NDMA and others, Ministry of Environment, Niti Aayog. And international agencies also, all UN agencies will also be invited to join. And and all the Center of Excellence on Disaster Management, all the Centers of Excellence on Climate Change Adaptation. So this will be like a one-stop platform where we can get the idea of the researches and the pilots and interventions done by various agencies, so that we can have the connectivity, and this will become a it will also help like a bridge. So final saying is that the development, we are moving very fast. We are in the period of the disruptive technology, but we should also realize that we are not only in the period of disruptive technology, which is a great benefit. Also, it is bringing some kind of critical risks also. But we are also at the same time in the period of great disruption in the social systems. So how do we look at the future approach of disaster resilience and climate change adaptation, recognizing the social changes, disruptive changes in our society and behavioral system, and also the disruptive change in our technology domain. We are connected to each other more through technology, more through the electronic gadgets, less in person. So and all the civil supplies in the cities are automated systems. So how do we look at the future disaster management systems is a major question. And the final thing, despite of our hunger, our want for more and more economic growth, we should be very clear that if we compromise a lot with the natural capital, with the the resilience of the natural systems or the economic services, we will be having greater and more complex challenge, as we have already started witnessing that. So the Lord Buddha's the saying of Madhyam Marg, that is the middle path is the way to wisdom. We should also protect nature, but we should also have development. So how to bring a balance? And this is a key message from all Indian scriptures, Vedas, Upanishads, and all the saying, all the lessons from all the dharmas as well. So thank you very much for listening with patience and giving me this opportunity to share some of the work from my team and colleagues on this aspect of climate risk and climate risk management. Thank you, and over to you.
Thank you, sir, for your inspiring and engaging talk with us. Participants can now put their questions in the question and answer box or raise their hands. And as participants type in their questions, I also invite Ms. Bhargavi ji to share her thoughts on the presentation.
Thank you so much, Sakshi, and thank you, Dr. Anil Gupta. That was a very comprehensive account of the many efforts that are going on in the country, and thank you for highlighting the mid path, because from everything I shared in the earlier session, I think it would have left our participants very sad and deeply troubled, but you brought in a lot of hope with the many efforts that are happening at the state level, at the national level, and the various programs that you shared. It was truly very enlightening. Thank you. So in the same line of thought, I was just wondering, have there been efforts to draw these plans from the ground up? Because most of the time the plans are all top down and they hardly reach the most marginal. So has there been any program anywhere where there has been a ground up plan and it has been incorporated into the main plan, either by a state or by a city, and it is being implemented and it has brought relief and the people are really truly resilient? Thank you.
Thank you for bringing this question, very important. So first I will say that India is highly undulating terrain. Undulating terrain, when I say, not in terms of geology only or the ecology, in terms of governance and implementation also. India is a land which has provided excellent success stories also, but we have so many failure stories as well. And both give good lessons. That is the reason the Prime Minister's 10-point agenda on disaster management says that none of the lessons from the past disasters should be forgotten. And now coming directly to the answer of your questions, that we have improved a lot. But I admit that when we started with this planning process, a lot of externality was there, because that time we did not have that capacity. 10 years or 15 years back, we did not have that kind of capacity at the local level to analyze risk, do vulnerability assessment, and all the time we cannot have external consultants. So that was a challenge. But now there is a huge investment in capacity building also, and now there are good models available, and those models serve as a lot of improvements. So even first, for example, first we developed disaster management plan at the district level, and we brought external consultants to prepare that time. We all agreed that external consultant prepare the plan. There are a lot of challenges in their implementation. But based on that, there were capacity building where district officials were asked to review and revise that, because local language, local terminology, that is very important. Now the focus is that how cities prepare their own disaster management plan, and also the Gram Panchayat development plan includes disaster management plan also, and that has to be prepared by them. So external factors can work only as a catalyst or the facilitators, but not the planners. But yes, there are a lot of undulating terrain. We have good plans also. We have locations where we need to improve. But second thing, many times the plans are good, but to what extent those are implemented? So again, there are issues of professional capacity gaps or professional capacity challenge. So someone has prepared excellent plans, but to what extent it has been translated? Many times we talk of the funding mechanism. When we talk of the availability of funds, I think there is not, the funding is not challenged now in India. But how to use that funds? Because funds are to be utilized under some framework of regulations. So for that, we have to prepare projects. We have to implement projects, we have to monitor projects, and for that also professional competency is needed. And administrators do not have that kind of technical knowledge all the time. So my answer is that we have a mixed situation, but we are improving. We are improving, and the Sendai framework has given us very important thing, that is a quantitative target. Earlier we were having only qualitative target. Now we have a quantitative target. So we have our own evaluation also. And this scorecard approach that I was talking about the city, basically it is for them so that they can evaluate themselves that where they are lacking. So thank you for bringing this point.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'll hand it over to Sakshi to take the other questions.
Thank you. May I please invite everyone who's sharing their questions in the Q&A box to unmute and ask, sir. Deepa ji. All right. If it's not possible, I'll just read the question out. The question says, is there a plan to do any study or network specifically to heat stress, as it is not officially classified as a disaster?
Heat situations are regularly being monitored. So the NDMA has been designated as the nodal agency because a lot of coordination is needed. While heat as a health concern is the responsibility of the health department or the Ministry of Health. And in the state, basically, the jobs are assigned, responsibilities are assigned to various departments. For example, the forest department will look after the afforestation, planting trees, creating avenues, shelters, these kind of things. Water department, drinking and water sanitation to provide water. And many cities, many districts have prepared the heat action plans. Ahmedabad was the first, but then Orissa also. Many states have prepared the heat action plan. Now, what is the effort? That whatever heat action plan have been prepared was based on the past experiences. But now in climate science and climate policy, we have recognized that past is not always the key to future. Earlier, we were saying that, okay, past is the key to future. Now the trends are changing so fast that we cannot predict future just based on past. कि पहले ये हुआ है तो अभी trend ऐसा रहेगा. No. And we have different climatic scenarios. Based on that, we do climate projections. So now we want to revisit and improve those plans based on the fresh climate projections for next 30 years or 50 years period. Because there are certain things which are to be done immediately for this year, but there are certain things, a tree cannot be grown in 6 months' time. It will need few years' time to grow and provide shelter to people. You know? So this kind of studies are being done. We have done the future projections for some cities also. That has been, paper also has been published, and government is using that. Thank you.
Further, if anybody would like to unmute and ask questions, taking up questions from the chat box, Miraji asks, would you know if there are any modules on disaster management in CBC's new mission Karma Yogi for India's bureaucrats?
Yes. Past 6 months only, we started working with the mission for Mission Karma Yogi and I got platform, and we have created short modules, 20 minutes to 40 minutes modules on disaster management for both government officials as the outside people also. And we will be developing more modules also. And recently, a new major initiative of Government of India is at IIT Roorkee, Department of Science and Technology, Government of India, jointly with IIT Roorkee. A new center has been established in Noida, that is Integrated Center for Adaptation and Disaster Resilience and Sustainability, ICARS. So basically, that will be coming up so free modules, so free trainings, which any student can enroll, get a certificate, and then maybe future they will be thinking of assigning credits also. So this kind of interventions are there. With iGOT platform also they will be doing, and but under the university system or IIT system also, even the credits, possibility of assigning credits also. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gupta.
Thank you. Thank you. So thank you, IMPRI, for inviting me. Thank you, and once again, congratulations. And
thank you, sir. We look forward to learning from you in future IMPRI events as well. Now, with the permission of the chair, we would now like to move forward with the formal vote of thanks. As we come to the end of the sessions for week 5 of Understanding the Nuances of Climate Change in the Indian Subcontinent, Cohort 2.0, a 2-month immersive online introductory certificate training course as part of our online international Monsoon School program, I, Sakshi Sharma, research intern at IMPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute, would like to propose the formal vote of thanks on behalf of IMPRI New Delhi. We are grateful to our experts of today's session, Ms. Bhargavi S. Rao ji and Professor Anil K. Gupta ji, for taking out their valuable time and allowing us to learn from this expertise. We thank all of our participants for raising pertinent questions and actively participating in today's deliberation. We look forward to welcoming you next week on September 7th for week 6 of this training course for our session with Mr. Bhavreen Kandahari and Dr. Brajesh Kumar Dubey. We are grateful if you're watching us later on YouTube, listening to us on our various podcasts, or reading our publications. We hope you continue to join us in future to our IMPRI Web Policy Talk and Web Policy Learning. Wishing you a good day. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good weekend, everyone.